I'm Rebecca, 35, and it took me 12 years of 60-hour workweeks to afford my peaceful lakeside retreat in the Adirondacks. When my brother Tyler asked to stay there for a weekend, I reluctantly agreed despite my better judgment. Returning to find $23,000 in damages was shocking enough, but hearing my parents say, "He's just young, you can afford it," broke something inside me. They had no idea the calculated response I was about to unleash would permanently shift our family dynamic. Before I share how my entitled family learned their lesson, tell me where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had to stand up to family who took advantage of you. Growing up in Fairfield, Connecticut, I was always the responsible one. While other kids had summer adventures, I babysat the neighborhood children to save for college. My brother Tyler, 8 years my junior, received a dramatically different upbringing. When he broke my CD player at age 6, Mom said he's exploring. When he crashed my first car as a teenager after taking it without permission, Dad laughed it off as boys being boys. The pattern was established early. Tyler could do no wrong, and I was expected to forgive, accommodate, and eventually finance his irresponsibility. After graduating with honors from Boston University, I landed an entry-level position at a financial consulting firm in Manhattan. Those early years were brutal. Tiny studio apartment shared with 2 roommates, meal prepping ramen with vegetables to save money, and 14-hour workdays that left me exhausted. But I was determined to create the life my parents never taught me to expect. By 28, I had climbed to senior analyst, and by 32, I was managing my own team. The bonuses finally allowed me to start house hunting for something that had been my dream since childhood, a peaceful retreat away from the city's chaos. For 3 years, I searched for the perfect property, driving upstate almost every weekend. When I found it, a 3-bedroom cedar cabin on Lake Champlain with a wraparound porch and private dock, I knew this would be my sanctuary. The previous owners, an elderly couple downsizing to Florida, had maintained it meticulously. Hand-carved railings adorned the staircase, floor-to-ceiling windows captured the mountain view, and my favorite feature, a stone fireplace built with rocks collected from the property itself. I poured not just money but love into that place, carefully selecting each piece of furniture, planting native wildflowers along the walking path to the lake, and adding personal touches like the reading nook with my grandmother's restored rocking chair. This was more than property. It was tangible proof I had overcome my working-class background through pure determination. My relationship with Tyler remained complicated throughout adulthood. In his 20s, he bounced between careers: bartender, real estate assistant, half-hearted attempt at coding boot camp, always quitting when things required actual effort. He borrowed my apartment for a weekend when I traveled for business and returned to a noise complaint from building management and a mysterious stain on my sofa. He used my laptop once and somehow corrupted the hard drive, losing a presentation I'd spent weeks preparing. Yet each time, our parents minimized his actions. "You know how forgetful he is," or at least he's trying to find his passion. Last winter brought significant family changes. Mom and Dad retired, selling their modest home to purchase a condo in Scottsdale. Tyler moved back to Connecticut after his latest relationship imploded. Apparently, his girlfriend tired of supporting him financially and emotionally. Meanwhile, I received another promotion, the one that finally gave me the title I'd worked toward for a decade: Chief Investment Strategist. The family dynamics shifted subtly after my parents' retirement. With their fixed income, they could no longer bail Tyler out as easily. Suddenly, I noticed more calls, more casual mentions of Tyler's struggles, more hints about my fortunate position. The request came during Sunday dinner at their new condo. Tyler announced his plan to regroup mentally after his breakup. "I just need some space to clear my head," he said, cutting into a steak that I'd paid for. "Rebecca, your lake house would be perfect for a weekend." Our mother immediately jumped in. "That's a wonderful idea. You barely use it during winter anyway." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the one that always appeared when family expectations closed in. The logical part of my brain screamed warnings based on history, but the part still seeking parental approval considered it. "I don't know," I hedged. "It's not child-proofed for parties." Tyler rolled his eyes. I'm not 17 anymore, sis. I just need quiet reflection time. Dad clinched it with, Rebecca, family supports each other. It's just a house. For words that revealed how little they understood what this property represented to me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let Tyler stay the following weekend. The moment I handed over the keys, I felt a foreboding sensation I should have heeded. Tyler's demands began before he even left for the lake house. Can you stock the fridge? He texted Tuesday morning. And make sure the hot tub is working. I reminded him that the property had a comprehensive welcome book with instructions for everything. That's a lot to read, came his reply. Can't you just show me when I get there? This meant I would need to drive 3 hours upstate Thursday night after work, show him around Friday morning, then drive back to Manhattan for an important client meeting. But I agreed, telling myself it was just one inconvenience. Upon arrival Thursday evening, I spent 2 hours deep cleaning, stocking groceries, and preparing the house. I even placed fresh flowers on the dining table and set out clean towels with small chocolates, like a hotel. Friday morning, I walked Tyler through everything: the temperamental shower handle, the alarm system code, the name of the neighbor to contact if any issues arose. Most importantly, I emphasized, pointing to the lake view, this community values tranquility. No loud music, no parties. Respect the quiet hours after 9 p.m. Tyler barely looked up from his phone. Yeah, I got it. I'm not planning a rager, just some me time. His casual dismissal should have been my final warning, but I chose to believe him. There's a binder on the kitchen counter with all emergency contacts, local restaurants, and house rules, I added. Just leave it the way you found it, please. He gave me a one-armed hug that felt more obligatory than grateful. Thanks, sis. You worry too much. I left for my meeting, pushing aside lingering concerns. The first warning sign pinged on my phone Friday night around 11. A text from Mrs. Patterson, the retired teacher next door. Your brother seems to have invited friends. The music is quite loud. Is he planning to turn it down soon? I immediately called Tyler, but the call went to voicemail. I texted both Tyler and Mrs. Patterson, apologizing profusely to the latter. 2 hours later, the music apparently stopped, and I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking it was just a small gathering winding down. Saturday morning brought another alarm bell. The owner of the local marina called. Ms. Williams, your brother rented our deluxe pontoon boat yesterday, returned it with significant damage to the propeller and a broken railing. Our insurance requires your credit card on file to cover the $800 repair. I authorized the charge, then tried Tyler again, straight to voicemail. My unease grew when I checked Instagram during my lunch break in Chicago, where I'd flown for a weekend conference. Several unfamiliar accounts had tagged my lake house in photos, red Solo cups littering my custom kitchen island, people I'd never seen jumping from my dock, cigarettes being smoked on my grandmother's antique quilt that normally stayed safely in the cedar chest. One video showed at least 30 people crowded into my living room, someone mixing drinks on top of my piano. I immediately called my parents. Have you heard from Tyler? I asked, trying to keep panic from my voice. He's not answering his phone, and it looks like he's hosting a massive party at my house. Mom's response was infuriatingly casual. Oh, he mentioned inviting a few friends up for support. He's going through a difficult time, Rebecca. Let him have some fun. A few friends? I scrolled through more tagged photos. Mom, there are dozens of strangers in my house. This is exactly what I asked him not to do. Dad took the phone. Now, Rebecca, you've always been a bit possessive about your things. Tyler's responsible enough. The word responsible applied to Tyler nearly made me laugh hysterically. As night fell in Chicago, the situation deteriorated further. The owner of Lakeside Liquors left a voicemail. Your brother said you'd cover his tab. $500 for premium spirits. Please call back to arrange payment. Next came a text from another neighbor about cars blocking the narrow road to the lake. By Sunday morning, I couldn't focus on my conference presentation. I rebooked my flight, paying an exorbitant fee to return to New York early. As the plane descended through clouds, my phone finally connected to service. No messages from Tyler, but several more concerned texts from neighbors. Sleep-deprived and anxious, I rented a car at JFK and began the 3-hour drive upstate, imagining worse scenarios with every mile marker that passed. The drive to my lake house became increasingly unbearable with each passing mile. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles blanched white, while my mind conjured increasingly catastrophic scenarios. When I finally turned onto the private gravel road leading to my property, the first signs of disaster appeared immediately. Tire tracks crisscrossed my meticulously maintained lawn, crushing the native wildflower garden I'd planted last spring. Beer cans and liquor bottles littered the entire approach like the aftermath of a fraternity celebration. Upon reaching the clearing where my beautiful cedar retreat stood, I had to pull over as nausea overwhelmed me. The wraparound porch that had sold me on this property now displayed broken railings, cigarette burns scarring the hand-sanded wood, and what appeared to be vomit stains on the custom cushions of my outdoor furniture. 2 windows sported spiderweb cracks, and someone had apparently backed a vehicle into the side of the garage, leaving a significant dent in the wood siding. With trembling hands, I unlocked the front door, almost afraid to witness what waited inside. The stench hit me first, a nauseating combination of stale beer, marijuana, and something else I couldn't identify, but which reminded me of a locker room. My once pristine living room resembled a war zone. The wool area rug imported from Ireland bore countless stains and burns. My cream-colored sectional sofa, which I'd saved 6 months to purchase, now displayed tears in the fabric and mysterious dark stains. Someone had apparently used my coffee table as a dance platform, evidenced by the stiletto marks puncturing its surface and one corner completely broken off. Moving to the kitchen brought fresh horrors. Cabinet doors hung from broken hinges, spilled liquor had warped the butcher block island, and my refrigerator door featured a large dent as though someone had kicked it repeatedly. An attempt to make flaming shots had clearly gone awry, leaving scorch marks across my quartz countertops. Several of my grandmother's heirloom china plates lay shattered across the floor, their delicate blue pattern now nothing but sharp fragments. The guest bathroom downstairs somehow contained sand from the beach, clogging the sink, while the toilet had overflowed, water damage already bubbling the wallpaper I'd carefully selected to match the lake view. With building dread, I climbed the stairs, noticing gouges in the wooden banister as though someone had dragged heavy objects upstairs. The guest bedroom closest to the staircase contained multiple empty bottles, discarded clothing items I didn't recognize, and a cracked headboard. The mattress bore stains I immediately knew would never come out. The second guest room had apparently been used for storage, piled with emptied booze containers, pizza boxes, and abandoned shoes. But the master bedroom, my private sanctuary, delivered the most personal violation. Someone had not only used my bedroom, but had gone through my closet, with several of my personal items strewn across the floor. My journal lay open on the nightstand, pages ripped out and crumpled nearby. The mattress had been pulled halfway off the bed frame, and someone had spilled red wine across my custom duvet cover, the dark liquid seeping through to stain the expensive memory foam mattress beneath. The en-suite bathroom contained used condoms in the shower and toilet, makeup smeared across the marble countertop, and several of my expensive skincare products emptied into the sink, their contents making a sticky, fragrant mess. My grandmother's antique vanity mirror, the only item I had inherited after her passing, was cracked from corner to corner. Fighting back tears, I pulled out my phone and began methodically photographing every instance of destruction, room by room. I tried calling Tyler again, straight to voicemail. With shaking fingers, I dialed the local police station to file a report about the unauthorized party and property damage. "Ma'am, we actually responded to noise complaints at that address both Friday and Saturday nights," the officer informed me. "Your brother assured us he had permission to host gatherings there." Permission? As if I would ever authorize this level of desecration to the home that represented every sacrifice I had made throughout my adult life. While documenting the chaos, my neighbors Patricia and Richard Thompson appeared at my open front door, faces etched with sympathy and concern. "Rebecca, we're so sorry," Patricia began, her eyes widening as she took in the destruction. We called the sheriff twice, but they said since it was family. Richard, normally reserved, spoke with barely contained anger. The cars didn't leave until this morning. Dozens of them. People were passed out all over your lawn. Some girl was skinny dipping off your dock at sunrise. They stayed with me while I continued cataloging damages, Richard offering to contact his contractor friend for emergency repairs to the broken windows before the forecasted rain. Patricia made coffee in the miraculously still-functioning coffee maker and sat with me when I finally broke down, overwhelmed by the violation of my space. I let him stay here as a favor, I sobbed. One weekend. How could anyone do this much damage in 2 days? By afternoon, I'd spoken with my insurance agent, who explained that while some damages might be covered, many would fall under the intentional damage by a named guest exclusion. The claims adjuster couldn't come until Tuesday, but recommended I get independent repair estimates. The contractor Richard recommended arrived by evening, walking through each room with increasingly low whistles and head shakes. Miss Williams, he finally said, flipping through pages of notes. This is extensive. Just the structural repairs, windows, cabinetry, bathroom plumbing, deck railings, we're looking at minimum $15,000. That doesn't include furniture replacement, floor refinishing, or cleanup. The figure struck me like a physical blow. While I'd built emergency savings, this would consume a significant portion of it. Around 7, my parents finally called back. Did you connect with Tyler? Mom asked brightly, as though we were discussing Sunday dinner plans rather than property destruction. No, I replied, my voice hollow. But I've connected with the disaster he left behind. The house is destroyed, Mom. Thousands in damages. There was a pause before Dad spoke. Well, I'm sure it's not that bad. Tyler mentioned there might have been some spillage. Spillage? My voice rose despite my attempt at control. The house looks like it was used for a 3-day music festival. There are holes in the walls, broken furniture, destroyed family heirlooms. Mom interrupted, her tone suddenly defensive. Rebecca, these things happen with young people. Tyler's going through a difficult phase after his breakup. He just needed to blow off some steam. Their dismissal of the devastation felt like another layer of betrayal piled onto Tyler's original violation. When I mentioned the preliminary repair estimate, Dad scoffed audibly. That contractor is taking advantage of you. It can't possibly cost that much to clean up after a party. This fundamental mischaracterization, calling the systematic destruction of my property a party, ignited something inside me. I ended the call abruptly, promising to continue the conversation once they'd seen the damage themselves. That night, I slept in my car rather than in the defiled bedroom, wrapped in the only throw blanket that hadn't been damaged, the scent of spilled alcohol and strangers still permeating my sanctuary despite opening every window. As the temperature dropped and moonlight reflected off the lake that had once brought me such peace, I made a decision. This would be the last time my family took advantage of my generosity without consequences. The following Sunday found me at my parents' colonial-style home in Fairfield for our monthly family dinner, a tradition Mom insisted upon even after most of their belongings had been moved to Arizona. I arrived precisely at 5, bearing a bottle of wine I couldn't afford and a composure I'd rehearsed extensively before a mirror. Mom greeted me with her typical distracted embrace, already turning back to the kitchen. Tyler's running late, she announced, as though his tardiness deserved special acknowledgement. Dad nodded from his recliner, eyes never leaving the golf tournament on television. The dining room table had been set with the good china, a detail that immediately struck me as significant. Mom only used her wedding china for special occasions or when attempting to diffuse tension through formality. I offered to help in the kitchen, mechanically chopping vegetables while mentally reviewing the talking points I'd prepared. Your brother seems to be bouncing back, Mom commented, stirring sauce that filled the kitchen with garlic scent. This whole episode at the lake really lifted his spirits. Episode. As though my brother had enjoyed a relaxing vacation rather than perpetrating thousands in property damage. I gripped the knife tighter, focusing on perfectly uniform carrot slices. When Tyler finally arrived at 5:45, he breezed in without apology, tossing his jacket over a dining chair. Traffic was insane, he announced, grabbing a beer from the refrigerator without asking. Our eyes met briefly across the kitchen island, and I searched for any hint of remorse or acknowledgement in his expression. Finding none, I felt something harden inside me. Throughout appetizers, I maintained polite conversation, discussing neutral topics like Mom's garden club and Dad's golf handicap. Tyler dominated the discussion with animated stories about a job interview he felt confident about, despite having prepared minimally. When conversation naturally lulled during the main course, I carefully placed my fork beside my barely touched lasagna. I wanted to discuss what happened at the lake house. I began evenly, maintaining eye contact with Tyler. The property manager estimates repairs will cost over $23,000. A moment of weighted silence followed before Tyler shrugged, reaching for more garlic bread. Yeah, things got a little out of hand. Some guys from the bar wanted to keep hanging out after closing. The casual admission stunned me momentarily. You invited strangers from a bar to my home? My voice remained measured despite my accelerating heartbeat. Mom interjected before Tyler could respond. Rebecca, you're making this sound so sinister. They were just Tyler's new friends. Friends who destroyed my property. I clarified, reaching for my phone. Would you like to see photos of what they did? That won't be necessary, Dad interrupted, setting down his wine glass firmly. These things happen. You've got insurance for exactly this type of situation. I took a steadying breath. Actually, insurance won't cover most of it because Tyler was an authorized guest who invited others with destructive intent. That falls under the personal liability exclusion. Tyler snorted, speaking around a mouthful of food. Destructive intent? It was a party that got rowdy, not some elaborate revenge plot. His complete disconnection from the severity of his actions momentarily rendered me speechless. Mom patted my hand condescendingly. Sweetheart, we understand you're upset. But with your salary at the investment firm, surely this isn't a significant financial burden. The implication that my income somehow justified or minimized their son's actions ignited something that had been smoldering inside me for decades. Dad leaned forward, emboldened by my silence. Remember when you were 17 and backed my car into the mailbox? We didn't make this much fuss. The false equivalency between a minor fender bender and $23,000 in malicious property destruction crystallized every inequity I'd experienced since childhood. That's completely different, I managed. I immediately confessed, apologized, and worked after school to pay for repairs. Tyler hasn't acknowledged any responsibility whatsoever. Mom's expression hardened slightly. You've always been so hard on your brother. He's still finding himself. At 27? The words escaped before I could moderate my tone. I had already purchased my first apartment and earned 2 promotions by his age. Tyler's expression transformed from boredom to resentment. Not everyone wants your corporate drone lifestyle, Rebecca. Some of us actually want to enjoy our lives. The conversation deteriorated rapidly from there. Mom suggested I was materialistic for valuing my possessions. Dad implied my reaction was disproportionate because I didn't have children to teach me what really matters. Tyler alternated between feigned remorse when our parents looked his way and smirking when they didn't. The culmination came when Dad delivered the line that shattered my last illusion about our family dynamic. He's family, Rebecca. You have to forgive him. That's what family does. We support each other unconditionally. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that unconditional support in our family had always been unidirectional, flowing from me toward everyone else, with nothing comparable returning. The realization brought not anger, but a strange, calm certainty. I carefully folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate, and stood. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. This is about family, and I'll handle it appropriately. Despite their protests and Mom's teary accusations that I was overreacting, I gathered my purse and walked to my car with perfect posture, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. That night, alone in my Manhattan apartment, I didn't cry as expected. Instead, I opened my laptop and began methodically researching my options, the familiar process of analysis and strategic planning bringing comfort in its objectivity. For the first time in my life, I saw my family situation not as an emotional obligation but as a problem requiring a business solution, and I excelled at solving business problems. The following morning, I requested 2 personal days from work, something I'd rarely done in 12 years of employment. My boss, Julia, knowing my typical dedication, approved immediately without questions. With 48 uninterrupted hours ahead, I initiated what I mentally labeled Operation Accountability, with the same methodical precision I applied to complex financial analyses for clients. First, I contacted my property attorney, Melissa Goldstein, who had handled the lake house purchase. Over coffee at her Midtown office, she reviewed my documentation and confirmed what I suspected. Legally, Tyler bore responsibility for damages caused during his occupancy, including those inflicted by guests he invited. Your parents have no legal obligation here, she clarified, tucking a strand of silver hair behind her ear. But since Tyler likely can't cover these costs, you could pursue them if they acted as guarantors when allowing him use of the property. I hadn't recorded such an agreement, but her confirmation of Tyler's liability provided necessary validation. Next came the contractors, not just one but 3 different companies providing itemized estimates for repairs. I scheduled them consecutively, walking each professional through my property, documenting their observations on video, and requesting detailed breakdowns of materials and labor. The final amounts varied slightly but hovered consistently around $23,000, validating the initial assessment. The insurance adjuster, a weathered man named Carson who'd seen countless disaster claims, shook his head sympathetically during his Tuesday visit. Your policy covers accidental damage, natural disasters, and theft, he explained, tapping his tablet. But intentional damage by an invited guest falls under personal liability. Your brother should have renter's insurance or some coverage for this. When I mentioned Tyler's permanent residence was our parents' basement, Carson's expression told me everything about the likelihood of him having proper insurance. I hired a local cleaning service for initial debris removal and basic sanitation, allowing me to stay overnight while overseeing other professionals. During this period, I installed security cameras at entry points, changed all door codes, and revoked the emergency key I'd previously given my parents. Each action strengthened my resolve, transforming helplessness into empowerment. Evenings were dedicated to creating a comprehensive spreadsheet documenting every damaged item with corresponding replacement costs. I included original purchase receipts where available, photographs showing before and after conditions, and market values for replaceable items like grandmother's vanity mirror. The heirloom pieces received separate professional appraisals, adding authority to my claims. While contractors began emergency repairs to windows and plumbing, I consulted with Stephanie Chun, my therapist of 3 years, during an emergency virtual session. What I'm hearing, she observed after I detailed recent events, is not just anger about property damage, but recognition of a lifelong pattern. Her validation helped crystallize my approach. Setting boundaries isn't punishment, she reminded me. It's self-preservation and ultimately healthier for all relationships involved. Armed with legal confirmation, professional estimates, and emotional clarity, I drafted a formal invoice. The document resembled those I prepared for million-dollar clients, professionally formatted, comprehensively itemized, and utterly devoid of emotional language. Each line item included date of purchase, original value, replacement cost, and contractor information. The final section outlined payment terms, full amount due within 30 days, with option for 3-month payment plan including modest interest. The accompanying letter required 17 drafts before achieving the perfect tone, factual, unembellished, but resolute. This document represents the financial impact of decisions made on February 11th to 13th. It began. As discussed, insurance will not cover these damages. I've provided 3 options for resolution. These options included full payment, the payment plan, or transfer of property equivalent to the damaged value. The closing paragraph stated simply that this matter required resolution before normal family relations could resume. I scheduled the confrontation strategically, Sunday afternoon at my parents' home, when Tyler typically visited for free laundry service and dinner. I prepared physically and mentally, selecting a conservative charcoal pantsuit projecting authority rather than emotion, rehearsing responses to predictable objections, and even practicing breathing techniques to maintain composure. Throughout this preparation week, calls from family went unanswered. I needed to approach this interaction from a position of calculated clarity rather than reactive emotion. When I arrived, the atmospheric tension was palpable. Mom's nervous chatter, Dad's gruff monosyllabic responses, and Tyler's uncharacteristic silence suggested they'd been discussing me extensively. Perfect. I declined offers of refreshment, instead removing a professional binder from my briefcase and placing it precisely center on their coffee table. I've completed my assessment of the lake house situation, I stated, opening to the first meticulously organized section. This binder contains complete documentation of damages, contractor assessments, legal opinions regarding liability, and payment options. The transformation on their faces as they processed the document before them was remarkable, confusion giving way to disbelief, then dawning comprehension of my seriousness. Tyler's face flushed crimson, while Mom's drained to ashen white. Dad's expression hardened as he flipped through pages of irrefutable evidence and precise financial figures. When he finally looked up, his eyes held something I'd never seen directed toward me: uncertainty. My family's immediate reactions unfolded precisely as I'd anticipated during my preparation. Mom gasped dramatically at the total figure highlighted on the summary page, hand fluttering to her throat in theatrical distress. $23,000? This is absolutely ridiculous. Her voice pitched higher with each word. Dad's bushy eyebrows furrowed deeply as he scrutinized the itemized list, searching for inflated figures he could dispute. $5,000 for furniture replacement? $2,000 for refinishing hardwood floors? These contractors are robbing you blind. His dismissal was automatic, programmed by decades of minimizing expenses he found inconvenient. Tyler's reaction proved most volatile. Are you insane? He exploded, shoving the binder away violently enough to scatter several meticulously arranged photographs across the carpet. This is some psychotic power trip. I'm your brother, not some tenant you can bill. His face contorted with the entitled rage of someone experiencing consequences for perhaps the first time. I remained seated, posture perfect, voice modulated to the precise professional tone I'd practiced. These figures represent actual damages documented by licensed professionals. I've included their credentials and contact information if you'd like verification. The calm factuality of my response seemed to further infuriate Tyler. You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad actually love me, he shouted, pacing erratically. You and your perfect job and your perfect house and your perfect life. You can't stand that I'm happy without killing myself working. Mom transitioned swiftly to tears, her go-to tactic when logical arguments failed. We raised you to care about family more than money, she sobbed, reaching for Dad's handkerchief. What would your grandmother say if she knew you were treating your brother this way? The invocation of my grandmother, whose inherited mirror Tyler's guests had destroyed, awakened a flicker of anger I quickly suppressed. Grandmother taught me about accountability, I replied evenly. She would expect repair of damaged property. Dad leaned forward, abandoning financial objections for more direct intimidation. You're tearing this family apart over material possessions. Is that really worth it? His voice carried the authoritative resonance that had silenced childhood disagreements. This isn't about possessions, I corrected him. This is about respect, boundaries, and consequences. The payment schedule offers flexibility. The confrontation continued for 97 excruciating minutes. Mom cycled through tears, guilt inducement, and thinly veiled emotional blackmail. Dad alternated between dismissing costs as exaggerated and suggesting I was mentally unstable for fixating on the damages. Tyler stormed out twice, returning each time with fresh accusations about my character. Not once did anyone acknowledge the fundamental issue, that destroying someone's property warranted consequences. When I finally departed, nothing was resolved except my own certainty that I'd taken necessary action. The family earthquake triggered predictable aftershocks throughout the extended family network. Aunt Phyllis, Mom's sister, called Tuesday evening with reluctant admiration disguised as concern. Your mother's beside herself, she began, before revealing her true perspective. Though between us, Tyler's needed limits for 20 years. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother, initially left a blistering voicemail about family loyalty before calling back 3 days later. "I saw the photos, Rebecca," he admitted gruffly. "The boy went too far this time." Most surprising was Aunt Susan, normally Switzerland in family conflicts, who sent a handwritten note. "Proud of you for standing firm. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary." Alongside family reactions came the inevitable social fallout. Tyler launched what could only be described as a smear campaign, portraying himself as victim of my materialistic breakdown on social media and in texts to mutual acquaintances. Two cousins who'd always favored Tyler blocked me on Instagram. Mom's weekly bridge club apparently devoted an entire session to analyzing my nervous breakdown, according to her friend Carol, who called under pretense of checking on me. Professional consequences emerged unexpectedly. My concentration at work wavered during the most intense periods of family communication. Julia noticed, pulling me aside after a client meeting where I'd been uncharacteristically distracted. Rather than reprimanding me, she shared her own experience establishing boundaries with a financially exploitative sibling. "You'll lose people who benefited from your lack of boundaries," she warned. "But you'll gain something more valuable: self-respect and authenticity." Throughout the maelstrom, unexpected support systems emerged. Richard and Patricia Thompson, my lake house neighbors, regularly checked in with updates about repairs they were overseeing. My college roommate Alicia insisted on weekend brunches where she skillfully distracted me with stories about her chaotic dating life. Most surprisingly, my normally reserved colleague Jennifer revealed her law school background by reviewing my documentation and suggesting minor improvements to strengthen my position. As the payment deadline approached, negotiations began. Mom called suggesting Tyler could work off the debt through unspecified labor. Dad proposed I accept $12,000 as fair settlement, without explaining how he determined that figure. Tyler himself vacillated between radio silence and late-night texts, alternating between hostile accusations and self-pitying pleas. I maintained course, responding only to direct questions about payment options with factual information, refusing emotional engagement. 3 days before the deadline, I received notification of a wire transfer for the full amount. No accompanying message explained the payment, but the sender information revealed my mother's personal account rather than my father's joint business account that typically handled family finances. 2 days later, my hairstylist Maria inadvertently provided context. "Your mother sold her jewelry collection," she mentioned casually, having heard through Connecticut's efficient suburban gossip network. That antique sapphire set from her grandmother, the diamond tennis bracelet, practically everything except her wedding ring. The information delivered an unexpected emotional wallop. Mom treasured those heirlooms, often describing how they'd eventually be mine when the time was right. Their sacrifice represented the first meaningful consequence I'd witnessed my parents experience regarding Tyler's behavior. Tyler's conspicuous absence from family communication following the payment confirmed my suspicion that he contributed nothing toward restitution. His Instagram nonetheless showcased a newly purchased gaming system and weekend trip to Atlantic City, while Mom canceled her annual girls' weekend sighting, unexpected expenses. The repairs progressed steadily through early spring. New windows installed, floors refinished, plumbing restored. Yet somehow the lake house felt different, less like violated territory to reclaim and more like the site of a necessary battle finally fought and won. 6 months later, autumn painted the Adirondacks in brilliant crimson and gold as I stood on my fully restored deck, watching leaves spiral down to the lake's surface. The physical transformation of my property was complete, not just repaired but improved. The insurance settlement had fallen short as predicted, but the unexpected support from Aunt Susan, who contributed her interior design expertise for free, transformed necessity into opportunity. The replacement furniture featured more durable materials in slightly bolder colors than I'd initially chosen. The refinished floors now sported a matte finish more resistant to moisture damage. The kitchen redesign incorporated additional storage I'd always wanted but had originally compromised on due to budget constraints. Even the heirloom mirror, professionally restored by an artisan Patricia recommended, somehow possessed a deeper character despite its nearly invisible repair lines. The internal transformation proved equally significant. Weekly therapy with Stephanie helped me process not just the property violation but the lifetime of family patterns it represented. Healthy boundaries aren't walls became my mantra during difficult moments. They're definitions of respect. The family landscape shifted gradually, painfully, but undeniably. The first tentative reconciliation began with Mom, who suggested lunch at a neutral restaurant midway between our homes. Watching her deliberate over the least expensive menu items rather than her usual indulgence in multiple courses revealed the financial sacrifice behind that wire transfer. Midway through our awkward conversation, she placed her hand over mine. "I've been thinking about your grandmother's advice about respecting yourself," she admitted quietly. "Maybe I haven't taught that lesson very well." The simple acknowledgement, without qualification or deflection, created space for authentic connection we'd never previously experienced. Dad's approach to reconciliation manifested differently. An accomplished amateur woodworker, he appeared unannounced one Saturday morning at the lake house, pickup truck containing a handcrafted writing desk. "Thought your office space needed something solid," he muttered, avoiding direct eye contact while positioning it precisely beneath the window. The piece was beautifully crafted of cherry wood that must have required months of careful work. We spoke little during his visit, but his careful inspection of the repairs and quiet nod of approval communicated more than words. Tyler remained the most complicated equation. 3 months after the payment, he lost another job and experienced what Mom carefully described as a difficult period of reflection. When we finally met, at my parents' insistence during Thanksgiving preparations, his demeanor had subtly shifted. Still defensive, but less aggressive, occasionally allowing glimpses of genuine remorse between carefully maintained layers of indifference. "The desk looks good there," he commented awkwardly, nodding toward Dad's creation where I'd been working. "You always did have the eye for putting things together." The faintest acknowledgement, yet significant from someone who'd never validated my perspective before. The professional transformation proved equally profound. Standing firm against my family translated into unprecedented confidence with clients. When an important investor attempted to bully my team into a disadvantageous position, I recognized the familiar pattern of intimidation and refused to yield. The resulting negotiation secured terms that earned me not just a substantial bonus, but nomination for the firm's leadership development program. My personal relationships evolved similarly. After years of attracting partners who benefited from my caretaking tendency while offering little reciprocal support, I began dating Michael, a pediatric surgeon whose emotional intelligence matched his professional accomplishments. His genuine interest in my boundaries rather than how they might inconvenience him signaled a healthier relationship pattern. Perhaps most significantly, my relationship with the lake house itself transformed. What began as a symbol of achievement, then became a site of violation, eventually evolved into something more nuanced, a physical manifestation of my journey from people-pleaser to self-advocate. I began hosting weekend retreats there for like-minded friends rather than keeping it as a private sanctuary. Patricia and Richard became regular dinner guests, bringing dishes and stories that filled the rooms with genuine warmth. Jennifer, Alicia, and my work friend Tasha joined for our first annual Strong Women Weekend, sharing professional challenges and personal victories around the fire pit. Family relationships continued their careful reconstruction. Last month's Thanksgiving dinner marked the first holiday gathering since the incident. Mom prepared traditional dishes without her usual martyred commentary about effort. Dad engaged with my professional accomplishments without dismissive comparisons to real work. Tyler arrived on time bearing a store-bought pie and managed basic courtesy throughout dinner. Small steps, imperfect progress, but movement in a healthier direction. The morning after Thanksgiving, Mom joined me on the porch swing, wrapped in quilts against the November chill. "I found some photos of your grandmother wearing that sapphire necklace," she mentioned casually. "She always said jewelry should be worn, not stored away. I think she'd approve of how it was finally used." The acknowledgement of her sacrifice without resentment suggested her own growth alongside mine. As I prepare to end this chapter of my story, the lesson emerges with crystal clarity. Your worth isn't measured by how much mistreatment you tolerate from those who claim to love you. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're the foundation of authentic relationships. The path from people-pleaser to self-respect remains ongoing, with occasional backsliding and constant vigilance required against old patterns. Yet each time I unlock the door to my lake house now, I'm reminded of the strength discovered through that painful catalyst. My home isn't just restored, it's reclaimed on entirely new terms. I wonder about your journey towards self-respect. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family who took advantage of your generosity? What catalyst finally pushed you to stand firm? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. If this resonated with you, please subscribe for more authentic conversations about family dynamics and personal growth. Like this video if you've ever had to make the difficult choice between peace and self-respect. Thank you for witnessing my journey. May it somehow illuminate your own path toward the balance of compassion and healthy boundaries we all deserve.